Don't you ever get, like, a little creeped out? Our phones, they're always there, listening,
Yeah.
tracking,
Yeah, it's like, is this thing more connected to my life than I am?
right? Especially for folks who depend on things like voiceover, you know? That's their main way of interacting with their phone. Any little glitch.
It's a huge deal.
Yeah.
Way more than just, oh, the app crashed, got to restart.
Exactly. Speaking of glitches, this new iOS update, 18.0.1, not just fixing typos, let me tell you.
Oh, really? What'd they sneak in this time?
So there was this security bug, right? Could have actually spilled people's passwords, and here's the kicker.
Hit me.
This update drops right after Apple launches their own fancy new password manager.
You think those two things are related?
What do you think? Coincidence?
It's awfully convenient timing, isn't it? I mean, Apple hasn't exactly come out and said, yep, our bad, the password manager had a leak. But
You gotta wonder.
exactly.
So this voiceover thing, right? That's the screen reader for people who are visually impaired. This wasn't just, oh, some random data got out. We're talking about it potentially reading your passwords out loud.
Yeah, that's not ideal.
Not ideal at all. Break that down for us. How bad could this have been?
Okay, so imagine you're using VoiceOver. You're relying on it to tell you what's on your screen, right? And suddenly, it's just casually announcing your passwords.
No.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, hey, everybody, here's how to log into my bank account. This bug, CVE 2024-44204. They like a digital fingerprint for a security flaw. That's the one we're talking about.
CVE.
Right. But seriously, the very thing that's supposed to make the digital world accessible, it could have been the thing putting those users at risk. Thankfully, it sounds like a logic error.
Logic error. What's that in, like, plain English?
So it's like the code itself just wasn't checking if something should be read aloud, like forgetting to mark a surprise party invite as top secret.
Ah, makes sense.
So they fixed it now, obviously.
So the update, it's actually, like, important this time.
This time, yeah. iOS 18.0.1, go get it. They improved what we call validation in the code. Basically, it double checks before VoiceOver blurts something out, making sure it's not sensitive.
Good to know. Good to know. But wait, there was another audio thing, wasn't there? Something about the iPhone 16 recording before, like, you knew it was recording.
Yeah, that was unsettling, to say the least.
Yeah, a little creepy, even for me.
It is pretty high on the creepy scale.
So how bad is it? Really?
Well, maybe not as immediately terrifying as the password thing, but for anyone concerned about privacy, yeah, it's a big deal. This bug, CVE 2024-44207, iPhone 16s, all of them, basically send an audio message.
Right, like in iMessage or whatever.
Exactly. Phone might actually be recording a few seconds before that little orange dot pops up in the dynamic island.
Wait, so like a recording delay, but in reverse?
Pretty much. You think you're good that it's not listening yet, but
But it might be.
could be. And that's the problem. That orange dot, that's our cue, right? It means, okay, the phone is officially listening now.
So to have even a little bit before that.
Not great. Imagine, like, a business call, you know, something confidential, or even just a private conversation where you assume you've got privacy, but those first few seconds, gone.
Wow. Yeah, I can see why people are freaking out a little.
Rightfully so.
Like, instead of worrying about someone hiding in the bushes, it's our phones hiding in plain sight. Okay, so good news, I guess. Doesn't seem like anyone actually exploited these bugs, at least not that we know of.
Yes, as far as we know, this wasn't like a widespread thing.
But for fun, let's just, like, imagine the worst case scenario. For each of these bugs, what's the worst that could have happened?
Okay, so the password bug. Imagine, right, you're using VoiceOver, can't see the screen, someone's lurking nearby, pretending to scroll through their own phone.
Oh, this sounds like the beginning of a bad movie.
But they're actually listening to your every move, or rather, every word VoiceOver speaks. And suddenly it's reading out your email login, your banking password, all that juicy stuff.
Oh man, that's straight up terrifying.
It is. And it really highlights the potential for misuse when we're talking about accessibility features. In the wrong hands, that overheard info, it's identity theft waiting to happen, drained bank accounts, the whole 9 yards.
Ugh, it's like the digital version of someone peeking over your shoulder at the ATM. So, okay, that's passwords. Super scary. What about that recording glitch? How bad could a few seconds really be?
Right, a few seconds. Doesn't sound like much. But think about it. Let's say you're in a business meeting discussing something confidential, you know. Those first few seconds before you realize it's recording, you might let slip some pretty valuable information.
Wait, seriously? Like trade secrets, that kind of thing?
Potentially. It's a goldmine for corporate espionage. Or, even in a more personal setting, say an argument with a family member. You're angry, maybe you say some things you don't really mean.
Things you definitely don't want recorded for posterity.
Exactly. And if those first few seconds get captured without your knowledge, could be used for all sorts of nasty stuff. Blackmail, even.
Man, I never thought about it like that. So it's not just about how long it's recording, but what's said in those first few seconds.
Right. Like a little snippet taken out of context can be twisted and used against you. It's all about intent, you know.
That's messed up.
Yeah, and that's the really insidious part about these bugs. We're so used to our devices being these helpful tools, always there for us. It's easy to forget that they can also be used against us.
Yeah, for sure. Makes you think twice about, like, what you say around your phone, even when you think it's not listening.
You know, it's funny you should say that. This whole thing reminds me of this one time I was at a coffee shop, right? Super into this conversation I was having. And it hits me, like, way too late that my phone's been recording a voice memo this whole time.
Oh, no!
I know. Luckily, it wasn't anything, like, too incriminating. But still, made me really stop and think, you know? Like, what are we trading for all this convenience?
It's a tough question. It's like, we want these devices to be smart, to be helpful, but every time they learn a new trick, it feels like we're giving them another key to the house.
Right. Okay, so big picture time. What's a takeaway for our listeners? Besides, you know, go update your phone now, what can we learn from all this iOS drama? I think this really drives home a crucial point. As we get more and more into this world of voice assistants, AI, all that, we've got to be extra careful about security, especially when it comes to accessibility features. Because a bug in something like VoiceOver, it's not just an abstract technical thing. It directly impacts someone's ability to trust their device.
It's like technology should be empowering everyone,
Right.
not leaving some users more vulnerable than others.
100%. And
Yeah.
that's why it's so important to have really thorough security testing from the very beginning. Accessibility features, they need to be held to the same standard as any other part of this system.
So it's not just about fixing the bugs after they pop up. It's about baking that security into the design from day one.
Yes. And ultimately, it's about trust, making sure that everyone can enjoy the benefits of technology without feeling like they're compromising their privacy or security to do it.
Well said. Well said. Man, this has been a wild ride, hasn't it? Got deep into the tech weeds, talked about some pretty scary what-ifs, and even got a little philosophical about our phones.
That's all connected.
It really is. Okay, but here's the million-dollar question. And listeners, we want to hear from you on this one.
Yeah.
As we move towards a world that's even more connected, even more reliant on these smart devices, are these kinds of vulnerabilities just going to become more common? Is it just like the cost of doing business in the digital age? Or is there a way to have both convenience and security? Something to think about.
It's a balancing act for sure.
Always is. All right, folks, that's it for today's deep dive. Thanks for joining us. Stay curious out there. And maybe, just maybe, keep an eye on your phone's microphone just in case.